Hi, Rob Howard here again from EFL Talks, and today we have Alex Tamulis. He's coming to us by Macmillan from São Paulo, Brazil. And Alex, thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much, Rob. Thank you for the opportunity. It's great to be here.
Well, we had the pleasure of meeting a couple months ago here in Rio, and in fact, you talked about this, the formulaic sequences, and I thought this was perfect because it was something that was new for me, and I learned a lot. So I'm really excited to have you sharing that with our EFL listeners. So
I'm excited about it too, Rob, and it's just great to be here, and let's just have fun for the next 10 minutes.
Great. So without further ado, I'll let you take it away. Thanks, buddy.
Okay, thank you, Rob. So everyone, please welcome, and for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to be sharing some of the content related to this term, right? Because we're going to focus on terms. So one of the buzzwords in ELT right now is pretty much research on formulaic language. And formulaic sequences is actually something that we can delve into the classroom setting and explore a lot of the clauses and phrases with our students. So basically, what do I mean by formulaic sequences? Basically, guys, it's everything that we retrieve from memory without really processing effort, okay? So right now, for example, on the slide there, you can see some formulaic expressions that, you can fill in the blanks pretty fast, right? It's something that within seconds, you are able to find what the answer is. So for example, the first one there, there's a good chance that second one would be as far as I know. On the contrary, on the other hand, that's a good point. I see what you mean. Take into account and in spite of. So there you can see that formulaic language is a very broad subject, right? We have sentences, we have noun phrases, verb phrases, we have conjunctions, right? So it's not really specific to a niche. You actually have the whole broad spectrum of language percolated by formulaic language, okay? So these are just some examples for you. Okay, well, why is formulaic language so important? Well, basically, guys, 60% of what we say on a daily basis is actually formulaic according to research. So it is super duper important to show students that spoken language heavily relies on these types of terms that you just retrieve whole from memory. So right there we see real time. Right now, for example, when I talk, I don't have time to analytically analyze things just piece by piece. I have to come up with a bundle, right, and use this bundle accordingly. So I cannot really hesitate too much. So it's real time. I have to have timely pauses. I have to know when to pause, when to hesitate, when to use certain discourse markers, right? It's clause chaining, so it's different when we talk than when we write, right? When we write things, we have time to think and to plan, and we use sentences. When we talk, we go with clauses, so we kind of mix things. It's very disorganized, and due to the fact that it's improvised, so a lot of improvisation is involved, and there's a lot of ellipsis too. And what is that? Is the fact that the things that we don't mention, right? Everything that's just due to the context, the pragmatic situation that we're involved in, it will help us to use the right sequences, the right terms and sentences, okay? So, Let me give you an example, and this would be great for you to use with your students. Something like an expression, for example, when the time comes, right? I say something like, oh, I don't know, when the time comes, I want to be ready for it. I want to be prepared. So there are a lot of pragmatic situations that we can use that utterance, right? That piece of information that will be retrieved whole from memory. But what's really important is that we do have some leeway, some creativity that we can ponder and we can actually play with. So we can say when the time is right or when the time is appropriate. Or we can say when the time comes my way if we want to sound very exotic. But there are other possibilities that would not be accepted by the speech community speakers of English, right? So how do we show students that some utterances, some expressions are accepted within the speech community, not only for native speakers, but for L2 speakers as well? What is accepted? So, for example, let's say when the time comes would be the institutionalized expression. Everyone goes for that one. But if you want some creativity to shine through, then you can say when the time is appropriate or when the time is right. And then if you want to really sound exotic, when the time comes my way. But if you say something like when it is the hour, it's completely ungrammatical, right? It's not right because you're actually, in this case, having Portuguese interference, right? Portuguese syntax. So what's really important to bear in mind is that we have to use the utterances accordingly. They are ready for us to use them, and we have to show students that it's the way it is done in spoken language, because there's no time to come up with a lot of creative stuff. We need to have some prefabricated things to help us, right? And this will aid students in fluency maintenance, right? So we have a lot of discourse markers, such as right now, anyway, well, oh, so, right? So all these discourse markers will help us maintain fluency in spoken language. We can memorize whole sentences, and this happens a lot, guys. When you talk to your boss, when you're at work, when you're watching a lecture, anything that you do in society, right? Due to the context, we have to memorize sentences as well. And we can work with lexical items, just like the lexical approach, right? We can use those collocations, fixed term expressions. All those things are beneficial as well. But what's really important to bear in mind is that spoken language and fluency are very much related to the good use of prefabricated and planned speech. Okay, this is what I really want to focus on. I have that slide. I really like that because, guys, when we use languages, not only English, we do not have just black and white answers. Okay, so sometimes when students study grammar, everything is black and white, but in spoken language and in pragmatics, a lot of what we say is actually around that shades of gray, area. So everything is just, things are filtered through the pragmatic lens, okay? So right there, for example, let's say we have a table that this table shows us that we have the function, right? So we have, for example, let's say what I call the institutionalized sentence, something like you're at work and you're not feeling well, you're going to call in sick, right? This expression is used by everyone. But then you can try and find leeway to be creative about it. But how much creativity can you add within an accepted pattern, right, within the society? So this is the trick, the shades of gray of how you can play with the sentences. But what's really important to know is we do have some guide sentences, right? Some sentences that are, let's say, just the official versions of the sentences, and then we can use creativity to try and add more to the palette. but we have to follow certain rules. And what rules are there? It's pretty much just what is accepted within the speech community. So not only by native speakers, but also by other proficient L2 speakers of the language, no matter if you're talking about English or French. So here are just some examples, right? We have, I can say, who wants to go for coffee? And that is very popular. It's pretty much widespread. And then I can say, well, who wants to go for a coffee run? Or I can be really exotic and I can say, who's the dapper gentleman that's going for some coffee procurement? Something like, it's really exotic, almost to the point of, being sounding anomalous. And then I can actually be, we can actually have that fourth option there. Who will go out to buy a little of coffee? And that is anomalous. That is not, that's ungrammatical, and it's not a sentence that would be uttered by a speech community user, right, or speaker. So that's what I wanted to show you guys, that formulaic language is so important, but using it accordingly is even more important. And you do have some leeway to use your creativity, but mind you, that is going to be guided by certain pragmatic rules. Okay? So, and then you can think, well, maybe I only think that formulaic stuff is related to idioms. And it's not only that. That's what I wanted to show you in these 10 minutes. It's pretty much that every aspect of language is actually, like I said, percolated. It oozes through language. Formulaic language is just out there. 60% of what we say is formulaic. It's not only idioms. And I actually added some idioms there for you to see that if we analyze piece by piece, it doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't really jive well. If we analyze the whole sentence, though, or the whole clause, it sounds, then it has a pragmatic meaning. Like, it costs an arm and a leg, or the ball is in your court now, right? I want the best of both worlds. I'm working a lot. I'm burning the midnight oil, and all of those examples there. In the heat of the moment, sometimes you get really angry about things. So, okay, idioms are important, but someone has come up with that line, I don't know, a long time ago, and it has become institutionalized. That's what is important, okay? Guys, well, we only got 10 minutes, so it's basically just giving you a rough idea on the term, presenting you new terms, or let's say, famous methods, methodology, all this stuff that is important in ELT that we all share. So I wanted to introduce this research on formulaic language, not only lexical items, but also analyzing sentences, okay? So it's broader in terms of research features. And I actually wrote a 50-page essay on formulaic language. It's called The Bards of Language. It's right there, the cover. I posted on 3 websites, on issue.com. Issue, you write it with double S and double U, right? issuu.com/Alex Tamulis. And that's totally free. You can read the whole essay on formulaic sequences there. Or if you prefer, you can also check my academia.edu page, and I posted there as well, or ResearchGate. Those 3 websites are right there for you to know more about formulaic language, and we need more research on it because it's fairly new. We need more people to jump the boat and help us with research on this field. So we can conclude, guys, that using formulaic sequences, right, collocations, bearing in mind the fact that spoken grammar in the classroom setting will help students become more fluent and will help students be exposed to real-world language. That's what we want. And we have to, students have to be aware that communication is of paramount importance. Okay, so if we're working towards communication and shared knowledge and interaction via all these features of language being aided by videos, images, posters, and music our classroom is going to be much more fun, and students are going to have a better time memorizing these things and using memory to help them be better, be more proficient, and communicate better with English speakers. Okay? Well, that's what I had for you today. Thank you so much, Rob. Thank you for the opportunity, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.
Great, Alex. Alex, that was great. I've seen the long version of this presentation, and I know it's difficult to fit this into 10 minutes. You did a great job. At 13, we let it go. And really, the stuff is very interesting. It was something totally new to me. And I really recommend going and taking a look at your books, because it is fascinating, and it's a great way of rethinking the way we've been teaching. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'm super stoked with EFL Talks, and I'm an EFL listener as well, so it's great to participate.